Like and subscribe to this video to get your best Warzone Pacific drop ever. In this video, we're going to be giving you the top 5 best places you should be dropping in Warzone Pacific. We've got a lot going on in this video, and I recommend you watch it from beginning to the end because not only are we going to do the best drops, we are also going to do beginner drops. Let's go ahead and dive in. To get into the top 5 best spots, as well as the top beginner spots, the first thing we need to do is actually go over the other 5 after we subtract the 10 that we're going to be talking about and explain why you probably shouldn't be dropping there because they're just not going to be that great. So first things first, and these really aren't in a huge particular order because they're all just not super great. We have a power plant. Now, it's not a bad drop. It actually has plenty of guns and money to go around, and that's why it's actually at the top of this bad list. But whenever you drop in, there's not a lot going on, and it doesn't have a great rotation to it. So when you drop down on it, you're going to be able to get some guns, but if there's more than 1 or 2 people there, you're not going to want to go there. It's definitely not a place that I would recommend going as a team, especially if you see other teams going there. If you do decide to drop there, just know there are some secret little spots that you can go that might have additional loot that could help you win those gunfights, like what you're seeing right now as we go through this secret waterfall room here. Next, we have Resort. Now, Resort has a decent amount of loot, but I wouldn't say it's super great. You're likely to have quite a few people there. Personally, in my games, it was actually little to none. In my personal opinion, I would say it's not really worth the stop as there's really only one main building and some small ones on the outside. But those smaller buildings, while you'd expect to be able to loot up and get enough loot to fight, you're really going to end up with only 1 to 2 chests, and that's not even going to have that much in it. Then you're going to end up in a gunfight with quite a few people, and you're likely to die right then and there. Third is going to be Capital, and you might be asking, why did Capital make this list? It's got a ton of loot there and a lot going on. Well, the truth is Capital is going to be Warzone Pacific's version of downtown. It basically has everything you need, but you're really not going to want to go there unless you plan on camping for as long as physically possible. Luckily, it is on the edge of the map, so it shouldn't really be too long of a camp in most cases. Like I said, there's an overwhelming amount of loot. There's going to be plenty of money and weapons. You're going to have to go through about 5 different buildings to get enough money and weapons to fight another person, let alone another team. And I definitely wouldn't recommend it if you are dropping as a team because there's plenty of other places that are going to be much, much better. Overall, it's a very hot drop. If the plane goes over it, it's not really worth it unless you already like downtown in Verdansk. We now have the most confusing part of the map for me, which is going to be Subpen. There's not great loot. There's not a lot going on there except for this one big building with multiple levels, a ton of hiding spots. And honestly, it's never really going to be hot because it's not good for more than 1 person, let alone 1 person, because if another person drops there, you're pretty much done for because only one of you are getting good loot, and whoever gets good loot's probably going to camp in a corner and probably just make the other person angry. Lastly on this list, the worst part of the map that you can drop in is going to be Runway. This one makes absolutely no sense because there's not even enough loot for 1 person. You're going to drop in, you're going to get 1 chest, and that is about it. So don't expect to ever drop there with your team. Not only is there not enough loot, not only is it not worth it for you to drop there, but no one already lands there because they already know that it's not good. It's really more of a starting point where if you drop in or the plane's going over it, you can drop in yourself and grab another plane for you to fly and get to a different area of the map a little bit faster than anyone else is going to be able to. Now, I will say if you decide to drop there, Noct is going to be there, Noct on Toten, right around the outside. Loot up there and maybe wait for someone to push into you if someone else actually ends up landing with you, which is, again, very, very rare. Now, let's go ahead and hop into the top 5 spots you should be dropping if you are a beginner. These are not going to be in any particular order like we had with the previous 5 that were absolutely garbage. We are going to be covering 5 different spots that I think are going to be very beneficial to you if you are new to the game, which is everyone, or if you're just not really that great at battle royales, or you're not that great at getting a lot of kills off rip, or you just don't have your guns. There's a lot of reasons that this is good for you. The first spot is going to be Village. This was actually one of the first spots that I actually dropped, and there are plenty of buildings for cover. There's plenty of loot, and you'll always leave with enough money. I'm not joking. You can drop here with a team. There can be another team that drops here. There can be 3 teams that drop here. There are a ton of buildings. There is a ton of loot, and there is a lot to go on there. Don't worry, because right now, no one's landing there. It's also a little glitched out. There's some weird places on it that look just very odd, like they're missing textures and stuff like that. There's just not a lot going on there other than a ton of loot. So if you want to loot up, you want to get ready and then start pushing, that's going to be the place to be. You can also just kind of wait out your loadout there. I highly recommend that if you're new, you drop on Village. Next, we have Lagoon. This one is an absolute underdog, and let me tell you why. There's not going to be a ton of buildings. There's about one building per island, but it has a lot of different level terrain and rocks for cover. However, buildings won't have a lot of loot. You got to expect that. When you get there, it's one building. They really only have like 1 to 2 chests. But the secret is when you go to Lagoon, you drop on the back side right here, allowing you to get inside the secret underground tunnel, and you can walk out with around $20,000. Literally just drop there, grab your money, and run. It is great. It's not a bad layout for an area and definitely is worth a shot if you're needing a reset after getting repeated bad drops. In my personal opinion, this one's gonna be super great for those of you that have not started yet on Warzone Pacific. Moving forward, we have Airfield, and this one is actually gonna be decently hot. I would say it's basically your middle ground to getting into those top 5 regular drop spots, but it won't really feel super hot because of the sheer size of this POI. Now, there's going to be a lot of loot. There's going to be quite a bit of loot, honestly, and it's definitely worth the drop if you're a little bit underskilled because you get a chance to get into gunfights as well as get that loot. You're going to walk out with a lot of cash, but you should definitely expect at least 1 or 2 fights. And the best part is, if you need to get out quick, you can always grab a plane and get out and go wherever else on the map that you'd like.
What?
Next, we have Docks, and Docks is going to have a ton of buildings, and I mean a ton of buildings. There are plenty of places for loot, but in my experience, there's not enough for a team to land there. So if you're going to drop in solo, that's probably going to be the best option. Maybe duo if you're lucky, but solos is my personal opinion for that one. Now, when I dropped there, the money wasn't great. I also didn't find any orange boxes, which means I'm not going to get a ton of money like I would in a lot of these other places. And keep in mind, I've dropped here multiple times, so I don't know if maybe I'm missing some loot here. That's just my personal opinion. Lastly, we find ourselves at Ruins. Now, Ruins is actually going to be one of those spots that's a little weird. You're going to go there, and it's mostly just for its looks, from what I can tell. You drop in, there's a lot of gorgeous scenery, a lot that you can see, but not a lot you can loot. It's not going to have a lot of great loot. It's actually going to have lots of different levels and places that you can traverse, and it's just going to seem pointless. However, whenever you get into it, you're going to start to realize that if you're dropping solo, and this is really the only time I would recommend dropping Ruins, if you're dropping solo, no one goes there. And I mean 0. You will literally 9 times out of 10 not run into another player. I ran into 2 on multiple different occasions, but that's it. That is it. There are not a lot of people there. So what you can expect is not only is this a great spot to drop normally, but it's a good one for when you're coming back from the gulag because we know you're going to die. It's a good one for when you come back for the gulag. That way you can go ahead and regain. The time has come for us to hop straight in to the top 5 places that I personally believe is going to put you on the track to get yourself some wonderful, beautiful wins. And our first spot is going to be Mines. Now, let me tell you why Mines is my first spot and where I'm going to go a lot of the time. It's going to have a lot of buildings for cover. It's going to have plenty of loot, but I will let you know you're not going to make it to all of it because it is a very hot drop. You have a chance to get a lot of loot and a lot of kills, but the most likely outcome will be death. My personal favorite spot to drop at Mines is going to be around this top area. It's got good loot above ground, and below in the mine shaft, you can get plenty of loot to supplement whatever else you need for your loadout. Once you get all of this, you can immediately start pushing fights because there are inevitably going to be people at this location, and that's okay because it's a great place to get started, get some eliminations, and make it happen. It's also going to have a ton of great rotations out of this area, and I highly recommend that this is the first spot you drop when you start getting comfortable with Warzone Pacific. Next, we find ourselves at Arsenal. Now, this place is going to have a ton of buildings, again, with plenty of loot, plenty of cover, and it's going to basically be a dozen sub pins. Like I said, sub pins suck because it was one building. However, you've got like 20 of them, and all of these are not going to be filled with camping spots, so it's much, much better. You will have to expect it's going to be relatively hot, but the buildings are so large that it's going to give you enough room to not die right off the rip unless you do something dumb like push someone immediately. At the end of it, you're going to walk out with a ton of cash, a ton of guns, no questions asked. That is, if you can survive. My third favorite spot to land is going to be Beachhead. I actually didn't expect this one to be in my top 5. After landing there about 3 or 4 times, I've noticed something very great about this. Again, plenty of buildings, but it's also going to have trenches for cover. And while you're moving around, you're going to notice that there's a ton of trees that you can get behind and keep cover. I actually ended up getting a second place gameplay at this location on my second channel, Expel Uncut, which I highly recommend you check out. It's going to be in the pinned comment down below. It is a really, really great gameplay and you're going to enjoy. This place is fun. It's also going to have a decent amount of loot. It's going to be surrounded by areas that are also completely packed with loot. It's just fantastic. It's going to be great for a team. It's going to be great for solos. You will have to be expecting other players. Overall, just going to be a ton of fun. My second overall favorite spot to land is going to be Fields. It has overall the best loot you can get. It feels like there are an infinite number of buildings, but also has great cover outside. You can see me just kind of chilling in this bush here, taking care of business whenever I got scared like a little sissy, because I am one. Moving forward, it is going to be relatively hot, but very, very spread out. So you'll have to purposefully push someone to fight if you don't drop directly on them. That is fantastic because it means you can loot up before you hop straight into a fight. Again, if you land on someone, you're not going to be able to do that, but just make sure you don't land directly on someone if you need to loot up first. And finally, the number 1 spot I recommend you guys land at, because this is going to be the place that you get better. It's going to be the place that you level up the guns. It is going to be the place that is the hottest spot on the map, and that is going to be Warzone Pacific's very own Superstore drop peak. It is hot, it is spicy, and there actually aren't too many buildings. You can expect a lot of tunnels to rat out in, and that's okay because that's kind of what you expected at a Superstore. I actually didn't think that this was going to be the hot drop. It just ended up happening. There's going to be tons of loot in a very confined area, making it easy to get looted and ready once everyone is cleared out. I'm talking about all the people that you're going to have to take care of. You can also, in most cases, grab a UAV and fly wherever you want on the map. That is, if you can survive.